My spoiled son refused to move out, snickering, "I'll stay here as long as I want. What are you going to do? Kick out your own child?" When I gave him a legal eviction notice, he laughed, "You wouldn't dare." His confidence shattered when the sheriff arrived and stated, "Actually, your time's up, and we're here to escort you out." I never thought I'd be in this position, sharing such a personal and painful story. But perhaps my experience can serve as a cautionary tale for others facing similar challenges. My son, Alex, is 27 years old. After graduating from college, he moved back home, which I welcomed. I believed it was natural for him to need some time to find his footing. However, days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and months into years. Alex showed no interest in finding a job or contributing to the household. Our conversations about his future were always tense. Whenever I brought up the idea of him moving out or at least helping with expenses, he'd dismiss me with a wave of his hand, saying, "Why should I leave? I have everything I need here." I tried to be patient, hoping he'd come around on his own. But things only got worse. Alex would stay up all night playing video games and sleep all day. He rarely left the house, and his social interactions were limited to online gaming friends. The once vibrant and ambitious young man I knew seemed to have disappeared. The breaking point came when I discovered money missing from my wallet. At first, I thought I had misplaced it, but after the third time, I knew something was wrong. I confronted Alex, and after some denial, he admitted to taking the money. He shrugged it off, saying, "I needed it for some online purchases. It's not a big deal." I was devastated. Not only was he refusing to take responsibility for his life, but now he was stealing from me. I realized that my enabling behavior had to stop. I needed to take action, not just for my sake, but for his as well. I sat Alex down for a serious conversation. I told him that he had 60 days to find a job and another 30 days after that to move out. I offered to help him with job applications, resume building, and even offered to pay for a career coach. But he just laughed in my face, saying, "You wouldn't dare kick out your own son." That was the moment I knew I had to follow through. I consulted with a lawyer to understand the legal process of evicting a family member. I learned that in our state, since Alex had been living in my home without paying rent, he was considered a tenant. This meant I had to provide him with a formal eviction notice and give him 30 days to vacate. I drafted the eviction notice, detailing the reasons and the timeline, and handed it to Alex. He took one look at it, crumpled it up, and tossed it aside, smirking as he said, "You can't be serious." But I was. I filed the eviction notice with the court, and a hearing date was set. Alex continued his usual routine, seemingly unfazed by the legal proceedings. He truly believed I wouldn't go through with it. The day of the hearing arrived. Alex chose not to attend, confident that his absence would stall the process. However, the judge reviewed the case and granted the eviction order in my favor. I felt a mix of emotions, relief, sadness, and a lingering hope that this would be the wake-up call Alex needed. When the sheriff arrived to enforce the eviction, Alex was in disbelief. The officers allowed him some time to gather his belongings. He packed a few bags, all the while muttering under his breath about the injustice of it all. Watching him walk out the door was one of the hardest moments of my life. In the weeks that followed, Alex stayed with friends and eventually found a part-time job. Our relationship was strained, but I held on to hope that this tough love approach would ultimately benefit him. I share this story not to vilify my son, but to highlight the difficult decisions parents sometimes have to make. Enabling a child's irresponsible behavior does them no favors. Sometimes, the most loving action is to set firm boundaries and allow them to face the consequences of their choices. If you're in a similar situation, know that you're not alone. Seek legal counsel, set clear expectations, and follow through. It's a painful process, but in the end, it may be the push your child needs to take control of their life. About 2 weeks after Alex was forced to leave, things went quiet. Too quiet. I was still dealing with the emotional weight of what I had done, evicting my own son. The house was finally peaceful, but it didn't feel like a win. I wasn't celebrating. I was just tired. I'd aged 10 years in 6 months, it felt like. Then, late one night around 11:30 p.m., I got a knock at the door. Not a normal knock either. That fast, hard kind of knock that says either something's wrong or someone's pissed. I opened it, and there he was. Alex. He looked rough. His clothes were wrinkled, he hadn't shaved, and his eyes were bloodshot. He didn't say, "Hi," or, "Can I come in?" No. He just looked me dead in the eye and said, "You think this is over?" I didn't say a word. Just stood there. I wasn't scared of my son. But I was shocked. He pushed past me into the house like he still lived there. Walked into the kitchen, opened the fridge, grabbed a soda, and sat at the dining table like nothing had happened. I just watched. Then he said it. "You kicked me out. Fine. But you humiliated me. You actually called the sheriff on me. You think people don't talk? You think the guys I game with don't know what happened? I'm a joke now. I told him I didn't care what his online friends thought. He needed to grow up. I said I'd warned him, given him time, tried everything before the eviction. I reminded him I offered help, money, coaching, even therapy. He threw it all away. That's when he said something I didn't expect. I'm going to get this house. You just wait. You think I'm the only one with issues? And he stormed out. At first, I brushed it off. Maybe it was just anger talking. But over the next few days, weird things started happening. My mailbox was stuffed with junk credit card applications, dozens of them. Then, I got a call from a credit union asking about a car loan application I supposedly filled out. I hadn't. My name, my social, but not my application. I pulled my credit report. Sure enough, someone had been using my info. Applying for loans. Opening store cards. That's when I started to really worry. I filed a police report, froze my credit, called all the fraud lines. It was a mess. I didn't want to believe Alex would go that far. But who else even had my personal info memorized? He knew everything. I didn't confront him right away. I needed proof. So I started logging every call, every letter, every alert. I even installed a security camera near the mailbox. Then, about a week later, I caught him. On camera. In a hoodie, late at night, opening my mailbox. I called the police immediately. They took the footage, filed it, and said they'd look into it. That phrase made my stomach turn. Look into it. Great. That meant nothing. Meanwhile, Alex must have caught wind that I called the cops again. Because the next morning, I found my front windshield cracked. Not shattered. Just a single deep line from edge to edge, like someone took a crowbar to it. No note, no signs of forced entry. Just that. At this point, I was exhausted. It wasn't just a spoiled kid anymore. It felt like a war. And then came the real twist. One of my neighbors, Marla, a sweet older woman who walks her dog every morning, knocked on my door. She looked uncomfortable. She said she didn't want to cause trouble, but she thought I should know Alex had been sleeping in a tent behind the abandoned lot 2 houses down. She saw him coming and going at odd hours. Said he looked off. I didn't know what to do. Call the police again? Go down there myself? Try to talk to him? I walked to the lot that evening. It was getting dark. Sure enough, there was a small, beat-up green tent half hidden behind some bushes. I called his name. No answer. I didn't get closer. Just stood there. I wanted to scream at him, shake him, tell him to get his act together. But more than anything, I felt sick. How did it come to this? When I got back home, I found a note shoved under my door. It said, "You took everything. Don't act surprised when I take something back." No signature. No date. Just those words in messy handwriting. I don't know what Alex is planning. I don't know how much further he's willing to go. But I've started locking every window, every door, keeping lights on at night, checking over my shoulder. I thought evicting my son was the hardest thing I'd ever do. Turns out, that was just the beginning. A few days passed after the note, and I was on edge. I was double-checking locks, waking up at every small noise, sleeping with my phone on the pillow. I even installed motion lights outside and changed the house alarm code, just in case. Then one morning, something completely insane happened. I woke up to find my garage door wide open. Not halfway. Not cracked. Wide open. The weird part? Nothing looked stolen. My tools were still there. My lawnmower. My bike. Even the old fishing gear I hadn't touched in years. But there was one thing that had changed. Right in the middle of the garage floor was a box. A cardboard moving box. Sealed with duct tape. No name, no label. I opened it carefully, thinking maybe it was just some junk someone dumped. Inside? My yearbooks. Family photos. Baby shoes. My old letters from my parents. Stuff that had been stored in a bin in the attic, stuff that meant something. He'd been inside the house. That was the moment it hit me. Alex still had a spare key. I felt like an idiot for not changing the locks earlier. I changed them that day. Got new deadbolts. Bought a second security camera. Started recording everything. But I also stopped sleeping. I was walking around like a zombie. It felt like my own home wasn't mine anymore. The feeling of being hunted by your own child? It's not something I'd wish on anyone. The next twist came when I got a call from my older sister, June. "You didn't tell me Alex was living with you again," she said. "What?" I asked. She told me Alex had called her 2 nights before, crying. Told her I kicked him out unfairly. Told her I locked him out when he had nowhere to go. Claimed he never stole from me, never threatened me. Said I'd snapped and made it all up because I didn't want him around anymore. He even told her he thought I was showing signs of dementia. That I was forgetting things, misplacing things, and blaming him for it all. I couldn't believe it. My own son was turning my family against me. I told June everything. She was shocked, and thankfully, she believed me once I explained it all. The legal eviction, the mailbox theft, the credit fraud, the footage. She said she'd keep her distance, but I could tell she was still rattled. I could also tell Alex had planted doubt. It wasn't just about the house anymore. He was trying to ruin me from the outside in. A week later, I got an email. No sender name. The subject line just read, "Stop." In the body was a single photo, my house, taken at night, from across the street. My living room lights were on. You could see the outline of me sitting on the couch. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat in the dark, clutching a baseball bat like a fool, staring at the front door. I called the police again, and once again, they took the report. Once again, they promised to look into it. But there was no direct threat in the photo, so they couldn't act on it. Alex wasn't stupid. He knew exactly how to push, how to stalk the edge of legality without crossing into anything that would get him arrested. But I was reaching my breaking point. I decided to meet with a private investigator. Guy named Marcus. Ex-cop. Tough as nails. He listened to everything, watched the footage, looked through the police reports, then leaned back in his chair and said, "Yeah, your son's running a long con. I've seen it before." He told me to keep my head down while he did some digging. He installed a few more hidden cameras, advised me to record every interaction, and told me something that shook me to my core. "He's trying to break you down," Marcus said. "You're dealing with more than a lazy kid. He's trying to get you to mess up. Emotionally, financially, legally. The second you lose your temper or cross the line, he'll be ready." And just like that, I saw the pattern. The stolen documents. The credit fraud. The calls to family. The untraceable threats. The gaslighting. Alex was trying to bait me into retaliating. And if I did, he'd have a new story to tell. That I was unstable. That I was abusive. That he was the victim all along. I kept quiet after that. Stayed calm. Let Marcus handle the surveillance. And that's when we found something. Marcus called me one afternoon, told me to check my email. I opened it and found several grainy photos from one of the new cameras he installed near my basement entrance. There was Alex, picking the lock. In broad daylight. No mask. No gloves. Carrying a small bag. He'd broken into my house again, but this time, it was recorded from 3 angles. We had him. Marcus said we'd wait. Build a case. Let him hang himself further. But before we could do anything with it, Alex pulled something even more outrageous. He filed a restraining order against me. Claimed I'd been following him. Harassing him. Showing up where he lived. He gave the court a few edited text messages and a fake story about how I was trying to destroy his life. I couldn't believe what I was reading. But there it was, filed and stamped by the courthouse. Marcus was already on it. He called in a few favors, got the original unedited messages from my phone records, and we prepared to respond in court. But one thing was now crystal clear. This wasn't going to end with a simple eviction. This was going to be war. The court date for the restraining order came faster than I expected. I sat in that stiff wooden chair, dressed in my Sunday best, while Alex walked in wearing a clean hoodie and jeans like this was just another Tuesday. He didn't even look at me. The judge asked both sides to present their evidence. Alex went first. He told his story like a seasoned actor. Said I'd been stalking him. Said I had anger issues. Told the court I had screamed at him in the street, threatened him in messages, showed up at his friends' houses. He showed cherry-picked texts that sounded bad out of context. He even cried. Real tears. It was convincing. Until Marcus stood up. He laid out everything. Every photo. Every video. Every call log. The footage of Alex breaking into the basement. The photo from the garage. The mailbox tampering. The anonymous email photo of me in the living room. He played the uncut audio of Alex's voicemail to my sister. The one where Alex said, "She'll crack. I'll get her to mess up. Then I'll win everything." You could hear a pin drop in that courtroom. The judge's expression changed from skeptical to cold. Then it was my turn. I didn't say much. I just told the truth. That I'd loved my son. That I'd done everything I could to support him. That I'd drawn a line only when he crossed every one I'd drawn before. The judge threw out the restraining order immediately. Said Alex was lucky he wasn't being charged on the spot. He told him to stay 500 feet away from my home and property unless he wanted real legal problems. Alex didn't say a word when we left the courtroom. But outside, just as I was walking to my car, he turned and yelled across the parking lot, "This is all your fault. You never supported me. You gave up on me." I froze. For a second, I wanted to scream back. Tell him he had every opportunity. That I bent over backward for years. That he stole, lied, and twisted everything I gave him. But I didn't say anything. I just looked at him. I saw the rage behind his eyes, but also the fear. The desperation. The tiny boy who used to hold my hand at the grocery store was gone. What was left didn't even recognize me. June was waiting at my house when I got home. She'd watched the court recording online. She said, I didn't want to believe he'd do those things. But after today, she didn't finish. She just hugged me. The aftermath was strange. Quiet. Like coming home after a storm and finding the whole neighborhood intact, but somehow emptier. Alex disappeared for a while. No calls. No messages. Not even online activity. Then, about a month later, I got a letter in the mail. Handwritten. No return address. Just 3 lines. I'm sorry. I was wrong. I don't know who I am without you. But I know I can't come back. I read it 3 times. I didn't cry. I didn't smile. I just sat there. A week later, Marcus called me. Said Alex had checked himself into a residential mental health facility. Voluntarily. Told them everything. The manipulation. The lies. The breakdown. Part of me wanted to run to him. To show up with a bag of his favorite snacks and tell him we'd fix it all. But I didn't. I sent him a short letter. Take care of yourself. Find who you really are. If you do that, maybe we can talk. June says I did the right thing. Marcus said most people never even get that far. Some days, I still walk past his old room and pause. The bed's made. The lights are off. The silence is heavy. I don't know if we'll ever be a family again. Not the way we used to be. But I do know this, I gave everything I had. I loved until it hurt. And when it came time to protect myself, I did. Maybe that's what being a parent really means sometimes. And maybe for now that's enough.